Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is Kiodiekin and welcome back to the channel. In today's video review, we take an exclusive look at the brand new Dolphin Emulation experience for Retropie on the Raspberry Pi 5 and the Orange Pi 5. Now, previously we were always using the IR Dolphin RetroArch cores, which really wasn't suitable. In fact, that was on Maximum Carnage as well as probably other gaming front ends such as Recall Box, Batacera, and so forth. But this allows us to take full use of what the Wii emulation and also GameCube emulation has to offer. Now, previously there's been a lot of confusion, misleading statements that the Raspberry Pi 5 can't do PlayStation 2, that it can't run Wii. Well, keep in mind we're always limited to what the emulators have to offer, and let alone what a reviewer can show you in terms of the emulation capabilities if they don't have access to it. Before we get started, we're going to do a quick recap of what this emulator looks like from one front end to the other. So we have the Dolphin Emulator, and what you're looking at right now is these are the game.ini files, or actually this is the Dolphin ini files for the Dolphin Emulator. Now if you look on the left, we have over 96 lines of available code, 96 lines of available settings that you can change yourself using the full Dolphin Emulator. Now, if you guys have already had PC, this is something not brand new to you. This is the same Dolphin experience that you have on PC. However, if you don't really game on PC too much, or you're used to changing settings, these settings are instrumental in determining how you can run on a single board computer, because we got to try to squeeze out as much juice as we possibly can from these emulators on these lower base single board computers. On the left, you have Supreme Ultra's Dolphin Emulator, fully unlocked with the full accessibility, 96 lines of options for you to go through and customize your games. And these do not even include the ini files specifically for the game. Over here on the right, we have 38 lines of code available. This is particularly coming from Batacera. As I've mentioned to you guys before, Batacera is a lockdown front end. It does not allow you to make all the customizable changes and all the customizable configs that you need to get a suitable gaming experience. 38 lines for Batacera, 95 lines considering an unlocked down front end or OS that will give you the maximum potential for emulation capabilities. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Ghost Squad, Donkey Kong Country, House of the Dead 2 and 3, NBA Jam, and many, many others. You're not going to get anywhere with 38 lines of code. I will also tell you that if you were to configure this on Supreme Ultra using the Dolphin Emulator, and you take this dolphin.ini file and copy it over to Batacera, you will drastically increase or improve your performance. You gotta have access to these settings, guys, in order to make these changes, in order to get a suitable experience. But nevertheless, we're gonna go right back to the front end of the Dolphin Emulator. This is what you should be looking at. This is what you guys should get. This is no longer a RetroArch core, but this is the fully unlocked Dolphin experience that you will experience using any of the newer versions of 1.4.6 for 1.4.7, and the newly going to become released whenever we get around to it, 1.454 version for Supreme Ultra on the Raspberry Pi 5, which is also 16 gigabit compatible. The Raspberry Pi 5 16 gigabit compatible when we finally decide to release it. So taking a look at it, you have your full emulation setup right here. You can also have all of your artwork and banners automatically downloaded directly through the emulator. Taking a look at it, going from left to right, we have our emulation. You got your movie icons here. You got your options, tools, view. You can change your view from list type to grid. Also, we're going to go right back to grid because that's actually what I like looking at. And then, of course, we'll take a look at our options. Now, in the options, you have some of the defaulted configurations here. This will give you the best Wii emulation and Dolphin experience that's been around here for quite some time. You can also set up all of your controllers. You can overclock if you need to. And then, of course, we have our graphics settings here. We got a Vulkan backend, which can also be changed to OpenGL, software renderer, as well as several other settings in here if you want to run an auto aspect ratio, 16:9 or 4:3. We also have our enhancements, native resolution of 640 by 520. Going to hacks, you can also turn up some of the speed in here if you like, or keep everything as defaulted. And then, of course, you can also show your frames per second and whatnot, which we will also be showcasing today. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the games, just to give you a brief look at what some of the huge benefits are with this particular emulator. Now, as you guys know, we use the Ether emulator for PS2, and one of the cool things about that you can't do with RetroArch is you can set up your overall parameters with emulator, and then even now with the Dolphin emulator, you can set up your overall emulator here, but also set up the settings directly for each game itself. Now, it was a pain in the butt a few weeks ago in order to go and set up each game individually, but now with the new advancements and the newer updates, you can go directly in to all of your Wii games and set up each individual emulator. So for example, Ghost Squad Recon, or Ghost Squad actually here, only launches with OpenGL. So typically you could leave your graphics back in at Vulkan here, and you could go into your presettings, change the Vulkan or default it back into OpenGL and get it to launch. Not every Wii game in this particular emulator will launch with either OpenGL or Vulkan. You'll have to find out which one is best. I could tell you that Donkey Kong Country and Ghost Squad launches with the OpenGL back in, but imagine if you didn't have that option, you would be led to believe that the game didn't work because it didn't work correctly with Vulkan. So I know with the IR Dolphin and some of the other settings using RetroArch, that wasn't too much of a big deal. They were pretty much just kind of launch everything, but at the same time, performance was crappy. It wasn't as good as it tended to be. So with this, you can go into your options here per game. You can go into your editor. You can adjust the codes. You can also adjust a number of different settings in here. And then, of course, you can also go to your patches, your AR codes, and your Gecko codes. Now, again, unlike with the previous IR stuff, and unlike what you guys have with Batacera, because it is logged down, you can go through here and unlock all the special infinites, special characters, special hacks, special tweaks directly for the game itself. As you can see here, I had already previously downloaded a number of codes, and Ghost Squad Recon has 37 codes available that will allow us to unlock the full functionality of the game. As you can see here, we're going to go over to Tatsunoko versus Capcom, and over here we have the Gecko code. So right now I have everything unlocked. I have all the characters, icons, colors, whatever the case might be. Even some special hacks or in-game hacks in here are all fully unlockable, which makes for a much better, enjoyable experience. We'll take a look at properties here over here on Smash Brothers, and again, I'm sure this is nothing that none of you who are used to running this particular emulator have or are used to on your standard computer, but we have over 570 codes for that experience. If you do not have access to this particular emulator or this particular setting, then you're robbing yourself of that full experience. You can set up your light guns. We can do net play with this. That is not just a RetroArch setting. You can also host and play net games peer-to-peer with up to 4 people directly with this particular emulator. But overall, we're going to take a look at how some of these settings are in here. We're going to back out. I want to show you just some of the differences on how you can get this set up and running on your direct front end. So as you can see here, we have our resource pack manager. FIFA Player emulated USB devices. This lets you emulate a number of different controllers here. You also have your GameCube menu, the default one. You have the defaulted Wii menu here as well. You can also perform an online system update according to the current region that you want to set it to, either Europe, Japan, United States, or Korea. Over here, you also have your controller layout here. I have mine perfectly already set up. You have your control stick. You have it's emulating your GameCube controller. And then down here, in fact, one of the biggest pains of trying to get through all this, it wasn't for me, the emulation, but actually going through the emulator itself, setting up the controller, because with some of these games, they required you to have the nunchuck controller hooked up or the classic controller. So for example, I had NBA Jam and I think Ghost Squad Recon. It required me to have the nunchuck either connected or disconnected. So you would have to log out of the game, just go back into the controller settings, remove it, or add it, just so you can launch the game successfully. But all in all, that's the only, biggest hassle. But you have your motion simulation here. We got that set up. You'll have to set some of these up if you are playing some of the sports games. So as you see here, extension simulation setup, I only got that set up. You'll need to set that up if you're playing games like, I think, what is it, volleyball, baseball, and a couple of others, because it's going to emulate that kind of left, right, back, and forth motion. So that'll be pretty much a requirement. But you have your Xbox controller, and just to let you guys know, there are 2 Xbox controller driver settings in here. You have your Xbox Series S or X, which reads like your Elite controller. And then right now I'm using a standard Xbox 360 controller, so we have it set to that. So I've noticed that here in the past few weeks, where some of these setups now are recognizing Xbox controllers as 2 different form of drivers. So in case you guys run into that issue, your regular Xbox controller is going to be addressed as a Series X controller. And then, of course, your Elite controller may register as that. But kind of tricky. You really don't have to worry about that for the most part. But that is what it is with this particular emulator. Now, what we're also seeing now is with the Dolphin emulator and also Ether emulator, again, these particular emulators, especially this one, isn't talking to RetroArch. If you guys are used to going into your Retropie menu, you're going into Emulation Station, the settings for that are going to be entirely abstained away from this particular emulator. All of this is its own closed off redundant system, so you will have to set up your controls specifically and directly through this emulator. Again, we're just taking a look at some of the options. You also have the ability to set up a hotkey where you can exit out of any of the games. We got your task tools here, and I'm just going to quickly scroll through some of these so you guys can get a look at them. You got your controller profile. You have your graphics driver here. You could increase or change your internal resolution. You also have USB emulation as well. You got your 3D setup, save and load state, other states there. And then, of course, we also have specific settings for your Game Boy Advance. Now, a few weeks ago, I was doing a lot of tests, and some of you were confused thinking I was running Wii emulation directly through the desktop. That is how this emulator launches. In fact, there's a couple of ways that this emulator will launch. It just depends on however you guys want to do it. And in that particular instance, you would see like a white bar at the top and on the bottom of the screen. So we're going to exit out. I want to just show you guys really quickly how that looks. So now we're back to the Retropie menu. And once we're to the menu, we're going to just load up a game here. Let's just pick Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And you'll see 4 distinct emulators. They all kind of do the same thing, but for the most part, they all kind of have their own different settings. Over here, we have our Dolphin GUI, which allows us to run the emulator just as a standard emulator will. Over here, we have our Dolphin, which will launch the game with that white bar at the top and bottom. The Dolphin emulator or the Dolphin editor is what I was launching earlier, which allows you to kind of go to that Dolphin emulation screen where you can see all the artwork and all the gecko codes and so forth. And then the IR Dolphin is the one that we definitely want to avoid. That's the one with the crappy emulation, or at least one of them. We don't want to use this one. In fact, I tried to delete it, but come to find out it's a standard core built into RetroArch, and there's nothing you can really do to remove it. So we're going to go ahead and launch here using the Dolphin GI. And then once we get here, we're going to go ahead and just take a look at some of the game performance. As you can see, we are pretty much running at full speed. There's no hiccups. There's not going to be any issues with this. But the performance is really great. And, you know, a lot of the times when we're trying to emulate, we kind of build up this sense of opinion in the community that a Raspberry Pi 5 or Orange Pi 5 can't either do something or whatever based upon a bad performance or bad recommendation or a bad... All right, here we have Super Smash Bros. Brawl from the Nintendo Wii, running at 60 frames per second. Keep in mind, not every game runs at 60 frames per second. This is probably one of the rare ones. A lot of games you'll find out ends up running between 30 to 45 and sometimes even 50. But you guys also too, you know, we as content creators, we really have to know how to use these emulators before we can post any form or final result, because a lot of times, you know, if we don't know how to fully use the emulator, then we can't come up with an exclusive result that says either something works or it doesn't work. So we're going to go ahead and start up a little bit of gameplay here so you guys can check out the emulation experience using Supreme Ultra. And it's also been brought to my attention too that this is a customized emulator version, a customized Dolphin version specifically for Supreme Ultra. A game or setup not having full access over here. Again, this is what the full emulator will look like if you're looking at the INI files versus something only giving you access to about 36 lines of code. Is definitely not going to do it. But again, let's take a look at some of the gameplay. Now let's take a look at Tatsunoko versus Capcom for the Nintendo Wii. Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles for the Nintendo Wii gaming emulation. Next, we have Star Fox, Nintendo Wii emulation. Full speed, no hiccups.
Got something on radar. Head ahead and coming this way. A stealth squadron. Look out, Fox. Try out your bombs, Fox.
Star Fox is headed this way.
Star Fox, eh? Work him over.
And where would we be in the world of Nintendo Wii emulation without Super Mario World? This game runs pretty decently. It does run a little sluggish. I do not know why it runs a little bit slower. If you guys think it runs fine, that's pretty much good enough. But at the same time, you can tell it's not really emulating as fast as it could. This is probably one of the more difficult Wii games to run. Again, I do not know why. I've thrown a few settings at it, but for whatever reason, it still runs a little slower than it typically should.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Ghost Squad. This is one of my favorite Wii shooter games. Runs phenomenally well. In fact, on this one, it takes a little bit of configuration to run this one as well as a few other Wii Dolphin games, but as you can see, it is impressive.
Go! I'm over here.
There's a time bomb up ahead. Cut the wires in this order. Blue, yellow, red. You have only one chance. Choose carefully. The bomb has been deactivated.
And last but not least, we have House of the Dead 2 and 3. Again, this is one of my other Wii favorites. Runs phenomenally well, and you guys will enjoy this experience on Supreme Ultra.
Reload! 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 Please be safe, G. How could anyone do this?
All right, so as far as the Raspberry Pi 5 is concerned, you don't need a lot of memory to really run some of these front ends. However, I will suggest getting at least an 8 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 5 or Orange Pi 5. Some of these distros use a lot of resources. In fact, I think Supreme Ultra uses about 2.5 gigabytes of resources. Ubuntu itself, even though I don't believe in running anything from a desktop experience, you need roughly about 3.5 gigabytes of RAM to run that particular distro. But if you stick with the 4 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte, you're potentially fine for running a lot of these front ends. But again, I hope you guys enjoy the Wii Dolphin emulator experience. Again, it came out, I think it was March of last year, and I did kind of showcase quite a few things that were here at the time. But this emulator will give you full speed with a lot of these games. I haven't went through all the Wii games, but your House of the Dead 2s and 3s, your major titles, Tatsunoko versus Capcom, Smash Brothers. I had some Frogger, and I even had some the N64 Super Mario World collection, as well as many others. All of those ran perfectly fine with this emulator. It's a much better experience than using the IR Dolphin or one of the emulators that were provided through RetroArch. So like and subscribe. Please comment below. Again, if you are looking to download a good base, such as what I provide and some of the other community members, I do have that available on the Patreon. I know right now there isn't a lot of Raspberry Pi 5 images that are out there. Yeah, it's been a drought, for the most part. But for the most part, too, you guys will get a really good gaming experience or answer some questions. Also, check out some of my affiliate Facebook groups, Kiodiekin Hobbies. I also help moderate the Supreme Retro Gaming Group, as well as Retropie Official. So I'll catch you guys later. I will be back with some additional tutorials and follow-ups in regards to PlayStation 2 emulation. But chime in, let me know if you have some particular games that you do want to see emulate running on Wii, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Bye-bye.